What is going on? Happy Tuesday. This is a day later than we usually upload a video on YouTube. Usually it's at Monday at around 1 p.m. But today I want to postpone this because it's a very, very important day in our province. And that is, it is the election day. I implore you all to go out and get yourself informed. The interview that I'm about to share with you, I was definitely a little bit hesitant to, but I think it was important because it showed a major weakness in myself. I was not as informed as I could have been during this interview, and you will see it. Going and listening to some of the conversations that I'm having with my peers around the elections made me realize how uninformed a lot of people are. So I implore you, please go take a minute, read each of the parties' platforms, and you don't have to read it cover to cover, but just get a high-level overview of what's going on. There's a lot of slander campaigns out by a certain party. Read out and figure out what are they actually attacking, what is the facts, because regardless of whether you're left or right, it's very hard to find unbiased media, so you have to form your own opinion. So go out, stay informed. You're going to see this conversation with Sandip. I clearly was not informed about certain things, and I'm okay with that. It was a learning experience. I chalk everything up as a learning experience because I'm early in my career. And I just have to be self-aware enough to admit that. So take a look at this. We talk about a little bit about what the Chambers is, the current economic state of Calgary, Alberta, oil and gas, and then entrepreneurship. So I do think a lot of you guys will enjoy this, and I will see you. Sandip, thank you for coming on to our show.
Yeah.
It's not really a show yet. Maybe it will be one day. But
hey, you don't know.
You never know, right? Yeah. But you have quite the impressive kind of streak in your career. You've done some incredible things. Yeah. But for those of you who don't know, for those out there that don't know, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm in the middle of a very privileged career, and it's been an honor of the experiences I've been able to have. They've all shaped the ability to be able to think critically, be clinical, and make sure that every voice gets heard, things like this, like just some basic fundamentals. But yeah, no, I got here, started last April, so not quite a year yet, and larger part of my background is working in agriculture. I worked for a large multinational based out of the US and then moved around a fair bit with that, and that's last stop was Singapore, and then came into Calgary. I worked for, right before this role, was an excavation company that we closed. I started out in a finance background, moved into operations, and then that was a game changer for me. But I'm rooted in critical thinking is what people say, but it's really evolved because I like to work with optimism. I work with looking at things holistically and really getting to a point where you have game-changing solutions. So yeah,
and that's kind of fitting for what the Chambers does. And just in case that they don't know, what does the Calgary Chambers do?
So for the Calgary Chamber, our purpose is to nourish, power, and inspire the world. And we're only doing three things. One is to rebuild the brand reputation of the Calgary business community. Two is to have business growth and transformation. And the third one is to be the podium of record.
Okay, so what do you mean when you say redefine the business community in Calgary?
To rebuild the brand reputation.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. We really have had challenging times, and so I want to make sure we instill that business is strong and we have a strong will to move forward and grow. We need to get to the right conditions to that, and that's where our podium of record and our voice of the business community comes from. And then the business growth and transformation is really programs we have aimed at helping and working with companies to grow and transform.
So there's so much opportunity in Calgary. How do you stay laser focused on your goals and where you're going?
Oh, for the chamber?
For the chamber, yes.
Our goal is to have one business community, one voice, so that we can create an environment and sustain an environment for growth and strong investor confidence. So to your question of, do you have to leave for money, we've had companies that have to do that because it's hard to get your businesses funded here because of the risks that people are perceiving with investing in Alberta companies. And that's what we're trying to do, is to move that forward so we can get competitiveness and investor confidence back into the Calgary business community.
Okay. So now let's take a step back. Instead of looking at the companies, let's talk about kind of like the individual that's running these businesses.
Sure.
What's kind of like the biggest trait that you see? I'm sure you talk to hundreds of business owners every week, every day.
Yeah.
What's that one trait that you see in entrepreneurs that defines them and makes them successful?
Their perseverance. They have a strong will and perseverance to always be moving forward and finding a solution that's an and solution instead of an either or. An entrepreneur thinks in possibilities and they execute from that same place of hunger and appetite to solve and really contribute. So they have such a strong perseverance. That's why we have such a resilient business community here. We have strong perseverance in the face of adversity, so we do move forward, and that's what entrepreneurs are really strong at. Business owners and other leaders in business, they have strong perseverance.
Okay, and then so on the flip side of that, what's that one trait that you find that like causes them to not reach the levels that of their true potential?
Of a company?
Yeah.
Market conditions. That's it. If you don't, in business, it's disciplined business decision after disciplined business decision. So if you don't make disciplined business decisions, you don't reach your potential or you don't reach your market. So the fundamentals of business have not changed. You have to be meeting market demand and you have to be able to get your product to the market.
Mm-hmm.
Those are you have to be able to get to your customer. That's fundamental.
Yeah.
And so if you can't do that, you're not going to reach your potential.
So, I hear your response, and I start immediately thinking about the oil and gas industry. How can Calgary or Alberta as a whole set ourselves away from that image, that perception that people have?
Well, in business, there's customers or companies here that can't get their goods across provincial lines,
Mm-hmm.
right? So whether it's blankets, it's wine, it's confectionery goods, whatever that is, there are trade barriers put up within our own country. So it's not just energy conversation. It actually is bigger than that, because we have such a small population base in Canada, and that's why people want to go to other markets. So whatever your good is, you want to go to another market because you get scale. Well, if you're testing a market out, Canada's a great place to test a market out, but yet we can't get our goods across our own provincial lines to get into Saskatchewan or Ontario or Quebec because there's provincial trade barriers. So when I talk about getting your goods to your customer, I don't just mean get market access for oil and gas. It actually applies across the line on other goods as well.
You just kind of blew my mind. I didn't even think about it outside of the context of oil and gas, but it is so much of a bigger conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
So okay, how do we as Albertans set ourselves apart? Because I don't think, in my opinion, the oil and gas industry is a long-term play, but it's not where I don't think it's where the future lies. How do we diversify ourselves, and how do we set make our name in tech or other industries?
Sure. Why do you feel like that's not where the future is?
Well, we see lower prices of oil, and we see these companies that are, their operations are very not lean, and And we see these up-and-coming tech companies that are just able to operate at a much lower OPEX.
Okay.
So maybe it's about finding new technology that's going to make us more efficient, make these companies more efficient.
Mm. I actually know there's a few great tech companies here in Calgary that are providing strong efficiencies into the energy sector. But we will always be a natural resources country, let alone province. I mean, if you look at the natural resources across this country, that is our bedrock. Those are the staples of our economy. So to your point, we need to be able to do those more efficiently. But in the long game, that is our call to market, is that's what we have, that's what we push to market, is our natural resources. And so if we do that and apply technology within that, that's the game-changing staple we have. So why can we not become the center of the next economy, which could be around climate change, which could be around energy delivered in an efficient, sufficient way. And right now we have very environmentally sound products that we put out within oil and gas and other streams. So for example, the cannabis market, right? Like, the world is coming to Canada to say, what are the regulations around cannabis, so we can just copy paste them in our country, in our jurisdiction. Because we do this really well and we do it sustainably. And that's where technology has already changed the game, right? So just, I mean, if you look at it, like, you know, you have SAGD, you have horizontal drill, like, all of that is technology that has pulled from an asset-based economy, which is the energy sector. So I would say we would be remiss to think of them as separate sectors. I think the next economies are ones that where technology can solve multiple sector issues. Because I don't think, like we were talking before, that you're going to have a company that can actually be defined sectorally, because they're going to be able to do things that solve multiple problems for customers.
That's, so, you know, coming from like my time in like tech startup space, that was very common language. We needed to diversify, we needed to get away from oil and gas, and I always seen oil and gas is kind of like the black seed, and like just now you literally changed my mind.
Oh, that's good then.
Yeah,
I mean, but it is a fact. I mean, you've got to apply this technology to something.
No, you're absolutely
on its own,
right.
it doesn't work. So it has to be an and conversation.
Well, and we're sitting on all these amazing resources, these amazing companies, right? Doing unbelievable things. Like, I think it was 2 years ago that Cenovus flew in a drilling rig into so instead of building service roads and tearing down like a forest, right? They flew it in. So it's how do we take these technologies and how do we apply it to what we already are good at?
Yeah, exactly. Right, and so and because technology and technology startups, like people talk about Calgary, we have a great startup community.
We do.
But we don't have commercialization, mass commercialization of our technologies. Where do you think that's going to happen? What's prime for that are the sectors and industries we have. Agriculture. There is we're just now talking about ag tech. Farmers have been doing precision farming for a while. It's just now becoming part of the popular conversation.
I don't even know what precision farming is.
Yeah, see, and that is 100% technology.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's why, because we got to stop thinking in sectors. We have to think holistically. Like I say, we're a small country. We will always be a natural resources country. So we need to be able to anchor in technology and embed it and integrate it in a seamless way. And we've proven how to do that before, right? I've shared a couple of examples just in the energy sector alone, but in agriculture, there have been tons of things that have moved forward based on technology.
So do you feel, and I guess it's kind of like off the cuff, do you feel like we're comparing ourselves too much to Silicon Valley and these other places around the world instead of just looking at what we have?
Oh, 100%. Like, I don't think those jurisdictions looked and said, who are we, competing to? They said, this is head down what we're going to do. And that's why, like, at the Chamber, we're very crisp about what we're doing. And then there are others that can do these other things. But that's what it is. We need to focus on who we are and own it, and then move forward from that.
Yeah, and like even like in a marketing conversation, like you know, you focus authentically on who you are. You don't deviate from that.
No, you don't.
And now like light bulbs are literally going off right now in my head.
Yeah, no, like I think like technology and health sciences, supply chain, we're very strong at these things, right? People have data management services set up here because of our colder climates and things like that. Okay, but that's just because that's a viable business full of technology, and we're leveraging our electricity and other things, right? Like those are embedded conversations. There's no need to slice it out and say, this is what we've done over here. What have we done holistically? And that holistic approach is going to increase competitiveness and investor confidence.
So I've taken like a ton of courses on like how to start a business, like starting up as an entrepreneur, and the first thing that they talk about is find your niche.
Yeah.
Right? And you've like just now you redefined finding your niche. It's,
yeah.
Like you can't. Like, I'm not going after real estate agents or small business owners. It's got to be holistic.
Yeah. Holistic, yeah. Because you're looking to commercialize your product, right?
Yeah.
That's a scale of success. We will still measure success in scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but it's not ideas. We're full of ideas. We're full of great startups. But we need to be able to take that next step. So to the businesses that tell you it's hard to get funded, they're probably at that scale-up stage and commercialization, and they're like, I've got this great product, but now I don't know how to get to the next step. That next step is what's going to create jobs.
Okay, and what do you for these tech startups here in Calgary, what's the biggest thing that maybe you've noticed that they can start doing to get more, whether it's support or traction locally?
Oh yeah, talk about solutions. Talk about how it's going to scale and change how you live your day-to-day life, or how, for example, in a business setting, how does that ease a critical point, a crunch point in my business? It's very simple. Like I said, the fundamentals don't change. It's just because it's technology and it's new and it's sexy, it doesn't mean someone's going to buy it. It actually has to practically solve a problem and create some efficiency, be able for me to get more value from my own product.
Yes, it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about the value that you're able to deliver to the end consumer.
Yes.
Like the problem that you're solving.
Yes.
It's not the features and benefits, the nuts and bolts of things, right?
So get your story tight, right? So as a tech company, get your story right, and leave it to the others to pick up the rest of the pieces. Just make sure you know what your home base is and what you're delivering, because eventually that's the one that unlocks the hidden values in other companies.
All right, so now going on to the, people my age who are just starting up, just kind of getting their foot, just getting started. What would be some tips that you would have for us just starting up? Yeah.
Starting a company or just starting their careers?
Starting their careers. Starting their careers,
If you're starting your career, my biggest thing, people ask me, they're like, how'd you get all these places? Like, how'd that happen? I said, I just said yes. Like, I really was curious, and I love learning, and I said yes. And that's exactly what it was. Like, I mean, obviously I did my education, and, like, it's not just, pick you off the street. But when someone puts an opportunity in front of you, like, don't nickel and dime it, don't slice and dice it or whatever. If it hits you and it lines up with your value set, go for it. I think the worst thing you can do is overanalyze, especially early in your career. Mm-hmm. It's a long game of life. It's okay to have a couple of false starts. I've had false starts. But you got to say yes, and you got to be curious, 100%.
I've definitely had my fair share of false starts.
Yeah.
So now on the other side, if I'm starting a business, what are some tips that you have?
When you're starting a business and having co-founded a company, I can tell you the biggest thing that goes through your mind, which you never really articulate, is how do I survive? How do I food on the table, pay rent, all that? So just talk to somebody, find a mentor, find a peer that you respect, and go, how did you deal with all these things in your head? So that, because those things will muddy your decision-making process. You may not know it, but they're taking up space in your head. So get yourself really solid and clear on how you're going to sustain yourself. Then you'll be great for everything you're doing in your business.
Awesome. So I think that's almost a wrap. If you have any last words or anything that you would like to say about the chambers, a little call to action.
Yeah, sure. Like, participate, get involved, get educated. This is a huge year with a provincial election, a federal election. Please stay engaged and really dive deeper than what's coming at you. Use your smarts to get to conclusion.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for that.
You've given, I'm literally speechless right now because you've given me another perspective.
Okay.
And that's what I want.
You should encourage absolutely. Like, because that's the thing about this is, like, if you only talk to the people you know, you're going to curate an opinion.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the other thing that happened to me is I learned from opposites. I just 100%.
I almost feel like I'm so caught up in like the startup and like the tech space, like you look at like the Elon Musks and the Zucks of the world, right?
Yeah.
That like I thought that my opinion was wide and my knowledge was wide, but then like even that small thing like not going like sectoral with your like.
Yeah.